The second of these plant medicines I want to speak about is peyote, the peyote cactus. It has a history, again, like other plants like ayahuasca. Well, in ayahuasca actually is at least two plants. I didn't speak about that earlier. Peyote is a cactus. Its natural habitat is the Chihuahuan Desert of northern Mexico and parts of southern Texas. It's been around for a long time. There's archaeological evidence to say so. At this time, its primary use is in the context of the Native American church. It's a beautiful medicine. It's often gentle, although it can be extremely powerful. It's very different from ayahuasca that way. In the Native American church, it has been used, well, the Native American church was essentially founded as a church around 1918, I believe, and currently has 300,000 to 400,000 members, primarily in the United States, some in Canada, among over 90 different tribal groups. Most of the people involved with it are native, but not all. Some areas, perhaps 10 to 20% of the people involved are non-native. The Native American church is a remarkable example of how to work with these medicines. But before I say a little bit about that, I also want to say it's not particularly accessible to outsiders, and I'm not speaking about it to promote it in that way. I'm speaking about it to honor it, to inform people who are interested that we have in our midst an example, an incredible example of a plant medicine, a visionary plant medicine using religion, which has saved many, many thousands of lives and has had to fight great adversity to stay alive. And it's right there amongst us in North America. So why do I consider it such a remarkable example of how to work with these medicines? Well, I've been involved with the Native American Church for the last 8 years or so, and I've been to many ceremonies, they call them, meetings in that time, and I've been deeply struck by the way that people understand the fact that this medicine is a spirit. It's a teacher and a guide. And if you enter it, if you surrender to it, if you open up to it, if, as they say, you can get out of the head traffic and enter into it, it will teach you in the similar way that ayahuasca will teach you, although, as I say, much different medicine. The Native American Church has a few things to recommend it as a kind of template or role model. Again, not to be co-opted by the white culture like so much of the history and culture of Native Americans in particular, but to be understood as a highly effective way of accessing what these plant medicines are capable of doing for us and with us. So, for example, the church itself is extremely light on its feet. It's basically non-institutional. There's no real bureaucracy to speak of. There's no written canon. The church and the teachings of the church live in the hearts and the understanding of the people who have made the full connection with it. Even the buildings, so to speak, the meetings are generally held in teepees. And some teepees are kept up, but most of the ones I've encountered go up the day of the meeting and are taken down in the morning. Just as the altar inside the church, there's a sand, oftentimes crescent moon altar that's built, and a fireplace, which is extremely important part of the whole thing. That's all put together just before the meeting and removed in the morning. So there's this kind of nowness, non-hidebound, non-institutionalized quality to it. And then every part of the ceremony has a reason. The rules are few, and they only exist, I've been told repeatedly, to lubricate the connection between human mind and a medicine spirit mind. So it has to do with being simple, trying to keep your head clear, not interfering with the movement of spirit in the teepee, and this prayer that I spoke of earlier in the section on prayer, using music with chant-like rhythms. There's a water drum that also is tied up for the meetings and untied in the morning. And what are called the instruments go around the teepee. Different people lead songs. So the bulk of the night is taken up in either the songs or sometimes people speaking out loud in spontaneous prayer. And that's another thing I've been completely amazed by is the eloquence and heartfelt articulateness of people who get up to speak in these meetings. So, I mean, I could go on about that, but basically what I'm trying to convey here is that the Native American Church is a precious resource, needs to be protected and honored, and it's a template or model for how other people, especially as I said earlier, how ayahuasca is spreading around the world, how we can work with these kinds of medicines in a simple, reverent, open-hearted, surrendering kind of a way. The Native American Church is an extremely precious resource that needs to be honored and protected, and that its practices are a remarkable role model for those of us who are using plant medicines and attempting to bring them into the world more to benefit human beings. A third medicine I want to talk about, and this is actually not one of the three in the vision that I spoke about earlier, is what's known as psilocybin mushrooms, sometimes referred to as psilocybe mushrooms. I think psilocybe, I'm not a scientist, but I think psilocybe refers to the genus. Colloquially sometimes referred to as magic mushrooms, but this is part of the, perhaps what you might call the misunderstanding of what these medicines are capable when they're referred to as magic mushrooms. However, the reason they're not part of this vision of three medicines that may have an extremely important and valuable role to play in the planetary consciousness transformation is that, and I put this question directly to the native elder who shared this vision with me. I said, why are the psilocybin mushrooms not part of this vision? And he, essentially without hesitation, said, because there's no container for it. And what that means is that with the other medicines that I spoke of, iboga, peyote, and ayahuasca, and perhaps some others, there is a long tradition of the use of these plants in the indigenous cosmos. Now there is with psilocybin too, but with the others, there is enough knowledge from the traditions that still remains that people can learn from them. With psilocybin, although it has a history, I believe in areas in the mountains of Oaxaca in Mexico, and I've even been told by some Native Americans that there's just a thread of tradition remaining from the Northwest as well, where the mushrooms in fact grow plentifully. But for the general person who would want to work with these medicines, with this medicine, pardon me, there's no continuity of that tradition available. There's no body of songs, there's no ritual context that we can learn about. What remains is hidden, basically, if there's anything there. So that can be a problem from the point of view of really understanding how these plants, in this particular case, the mushroom, is a medicine and a teacher. Now, of course, many people use this plant on their own, and I believe many people have had valuable, important experiences with it. But I will come back to this notion that in general, on average, there's much to be learned and a much more conducive environment potentially there when they're used in a ritual context, in good set and setting. However, the reason I'm speaking about them, the mushrooms, is because they're there. There are, I believe, I don't know, I think I heard 40-some varieties in the Western Hemisphere, perhaps 20 or more in the Northwest of North America altogether. And they are following us around, as Paul Stamets, the author of Psilocybin Mushrooms of the World, has said. They tend to follow the human footprint. They're not particularly creatures of the forest. They go into cleared land. They're around particular types of plants and gardens and et cetera, et cetera. So they're there, and it is a remarkable medicine. In my experience, and I've worked with it, in small doses, you could say, perhaps 1 to 1.5 dried gram range, they function as a truth serum. They really sharpen up your mind and give you insight. Again, given that you do them in these kinds of quiet, reverent, meditative circumstances, they potentially give you very sharp and useful insights into your life and the way you're working with it. In higher doses, it's kind of like all bets are off. The spirit may show up. There's powerful teachings involved. There's an opening into love. There's wild, powerful, colorful, visionary experiences. People speak of alien landscapes and encounters with entities of all shapes and sizes and forms. So it's a very powerful medicine, and it has also much to help us with. Given that there's no container, as I said, the best that I think we can hope for in working with psilocybin mushrooms is that people approach it with a reverent, humble attitude, respectful attitude, and try to create rituals that could be effective. Ralph Metzner offered the term hybrid rituals, where people take the best of what they could learn from traditional practices, from indigenous practices, and put them into some kind of a ritual that would work, perhaps involving prayer and music and chant and drumming and a meditative, quiet environment, that sort of thing, So this medicine has a lot to offer us, and again, the prayer can go out that the work that it can do for us be done in a careful, effective way.